Welcome back to Good Morning L&D. This is part 3 of our Unleash special. Moritz met our guest live in Paris. It's Ilja Bitterling from Deutsche Telekom. This episode is like a detailed roadmap to a skill-based organization. Ilja explains why L&D and recruiting must work together. He shares how they boosted internal hiring by 12%. And he speaks openly about the hard topics: AI, data privacy, and how to fix culture. Also, please check out our episode with Sandra Loveland. She is the biggest skill nerd Moritz and I have ever met. And she works for the oldest and biggest skill-based organization we know. You find the link in our show notes. I wish you now a lot of fun with Ilja and Moritz. And if you want more of this, feel free to subscribe.
Yeah. I mean, we know each other for quite some while, but I just asked myself, when was the first time you heard about this idea of becoming a skill-driven or a skill-based organization? I mean, skill management and so on is a topic which I guess is a bit older, but when was the first time you got really hooked by this idea of, turning Deutsche Telekom into a skill-driven organization?
Yeah, we have quite a long history of skill management within Deutsche Telekom, so it must be over 6 years now. But I guess around 3 or 4 years, we started to rethink about the topic. And the main question that we were trying to answer is, how do we make smart hire versus skill versus buy decisions, right? Which talent do we have in the organization? Which skills are still missing? And how do we fill that gap? And then, of course, you start thinking about how do we collect the skills within our organization. And then quite soon it became clear is that the best way to have accurate data is to provide a lot of value to employees in providing their skills. And that's the idea of let's say a marketplace of opportunities came, that we connect the skills that employees provide and the experience that they have with various development opportunities that we have in the organization. So that is basically how the idea of a opportunity marketplace connected to skills came. And it's a two-sided coin. So if you provide value to the employees, they will feel motivated to provide their information. And then we have the valuable skill data in order to help our workforce transform.
Oh, there's already a lot in your answer. I mean, I love to go really back to this starting point. Well, you said it was this ever reoccurring decisions, buy versus build when it comes to skills that got you hooked. Do you feel that this kind of decision or discussion is today even more relevant than back in these days?
I think definitely with the coming of generative AI, it's clear that I think the projection at the moment is that 39% of skills will become irrelevant over the next 5 years. I mean, there's all sorts of metrics that you can pull from that makes it clear that skill transformation is imminent, and it's one of our greatest challenges that we as organizations need to solve somehow. And that all starts with having the transparency about where do our employees sit with their skills today, and how can we provide them the orientation as to how they can develop their skills to stay relevant also in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because this morning we're here at Unleash and we had this opening with Josh Burson. I don't know whether you've seen it, and there was one element that was also exciting me about our session, which was that he was referring to a time we live in and we're moving to, where businesses are not that much cannot hire so many people anymore because of course maybe the demographics, which is around for some while, but also because of AI coming in and the capital markets, investors, all pushing the management to keep the costs stable and leverage the productivity, efficiency gains with AI. And the big question is, how can an organization actually organize such a thing? And I believe this idea of skill-driven organization and what you just already started introducing us to, the opportunity marketplace, can be such an operating system that can help you to do this in a respectful way and a realistic way.
Definitely. And also what stood out, I think you have external pressures that now are putting pressures on the costs that we're trying to manage. But you also see that with the help of AI, or the concept of the superhuman, that was, or the super worker rather, that George was talking about, is that you see that our efficiency and productivity is just going up. But I think one of the big challenges there is also we all see the potential of it, but if you really look at the data of how many people are really not only using it, but using it effectively, there's also a big task for us as organizations to help our employees alongside that journey. So the skilling is also a lot in the area of AI now, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is so much wisdom also in the journey, right, that you took with Deutsche Telekom in implementing, this idea of a skill-based organization opportunity marketplace solution. But maybe we start with the starting point, because I think this is where many people listening to our podcast are right now, right? They are in the middle of prioritizing the different topics. And I think one of them for sure is the topic of skills and becoming the skill-driven organization. When do you think is the right point in time to start such a topic?
I think that was a catchphrase. I think the point is just to start. Mm-hmm. and think about what are the first relevant use cases that you can provide to your employees based on skills, right? Is it relevant that we help them along their skill development journey? Is it important that we provide career opportunities for our employees, that we promote internal mobility? Or is it important that we really find the right talent in order to work on certain projects for the organizations that are relevant? So there's a couple of use cases that you can achieve with such an opportunity marketplace, and it depends a little bit what is the biggest need for the organization at the moment and where to start.
Yeah, and I feel there are two two different approaches, right? One is this rather holistic approach, right? We launched an opportunity marketplace to power learning and to give people transparency about their skills and personalized learning opportunities for them, which is more, this one to everyone kind of approach. And then I see other companies that try to really find very specific use cases. Like, in our CTO area, there is, this one particular role which is missing, or we have, the problem that we have too much external project managers, for example, and we want to fill that gap with internal ones, and we don't know where they are and how we can find them and how we can, reskill, upskill them, which is then very specific with a very narrow business case. Which path did you choose? Or did you choose at Telekom, and which path would you recommend?
So, like mentioned in the beginning, we already have a quite long history with skill management. And what we found in our, let's say, first attempt of doing the skill-driven organization is that if the skills don't lead to really value with the employee, it's not really kicking off. So we had in the past, we had that concept of employees getting transparency about their skills. We already made them learning recommendations to help them develop their skills, and also how they can maybe develop their skills in certain projects or on-the-job training opportunities. But we realized there that the scope was too narrow, and also the quality was not at the point that people really found the learning recommendations, for instance, fitting. So we had to start sort of enlarging the scope of the marketplace. And then, so we already had learning sort of integrated, we sort of had projects integrated, but then we went to the area of jobs and career paths, right, to sort of complete the picture. So we had to already from the beginning think a little bit end-to-end, like in which processes do we want to embed our skills and how do we create value? I know there's many organizations quite new to this entire topic, so they have more, I think they also, I've seen it with other organizations as well, it pays off to start small, right? Just to start with one use cases with skills and whatever else. We didn't have that luxury because we had that background and we already knew what wasn't working, so we had to sort of have this one-stop shop of development that we talk about, so bringing all the use cases that are relevant for employees and skills together. And that's the journey that we've been on. What I would recommend anyway, organizations to do is, even if you start small, have at least a think about where would you like to use your skills in the end, because in the end, you want to sort of design a process that gets you to that end state where skills are embedded in a lot of your core HR processes.
And I mean, you were talking about it needs to create this value for the user, right? So that they basically, follow along this path of implementation, which I feel is long and which you're still on. But I think it also needs a management to buy into such a vision, right? And what was the value you were kind of committing to them? And did you even find some kind of KPIs, to describe this value or make it measurable?
So definitely. So there's a couple of KPIs that we are targeting. First of all is the level of skill transparency that we have across the group, right? For how many percentage of our employees do we understand the skills that they have? Then I think later on the big promise is that you actually can measure learning effectiveness. I mean, this is a buzzword that's been going around for years, and we've all tried to solve that problem in different ways at different points in time. But I think skills have a great opportunity where you can, in the end, your learning initiatives should result in some movement in where the skills are developing in the organization, right? So if you have that clean data, then you have the opportunity to measure your learning effectiveness much more accurately. So that is a big promise. Then when we go about, so Deutsche Telekom has also a history of really managing capacity in projects. So we have also large parts of our organizations are working in agile structures, but also are consultants doing external client work. For them, so there the use case is really about how do we find people, talent across the group quickly for our projects, but also in the consulting space, how do we make sure that our employees are fully utilized? Are they all working on a project? Are they working on a client? When is the client engagement ending? Are we making sure there's a next project lined up to be efficient? So when it comes, that's the area that we call resource management. And there you can also set very clear objectives in terms of utilization of our people and also in a way time to staff, but then in project work. So if you have a new project or a new client engagement, how fast does it take to find somebody with the right skills? Then since we're talking about projects, you can easily extend that same concept to the recruiting space where we're using skills and experience to match our internal employees to our positions that we have open, but also our external candidates. And then in the recruiting space, you can set yourself targets in terms of time to hire, amount of internal applicants that are successful for your positions and those kind of metrics.
What I found back then and still today something is when you approach it that holistically, you also need kind of a very big team, right, to make that fly in terms of you were touching HR, you were touching succession, you were touching capacity management, learning, skilling. I mean, and the list goes on, I guess. So how did you get everyone on the table and how did you, started to learn also to move as one HR team, with such a project forward? Because I think most of projects are still very siloed. I think, right, the learning team implements a new learning experience platform, the recruiting team a new recruiting tool. And suddenly everyone has to, work towards the same vision and has to play his and her role in that.
Yeah, very good point. And I think we're still not quite there yet at all. But we are very good in HR to all have our specific products for the specific use cases. And often it's very difficult for a regular employee to understand what is all available to them and, right, how they can engage with HR.
And
in a way,
the employee doesn't care, right? I mean,
it doesn't care.
He doesn't care whether this is now HR A, B, or C. I just want it to work as easy and seamless as possible, right?
Yeah, and here I think this is an example where sometimes technology is a lever to accelerate that discussion. Once you have a tool that brings all the skill-related processes together, and you start off to show the value of how that can all come together, then I think automatically we use HR and the different functions in HR start tapping into that vision and start delivering that vision. I mean, yes, we're working on this platform where that all comes together, but that doesn't mean that we still need to work on really going in the same direction across the whole of HR. Yeah.
Okay, let's go a little bit on this kind of journey of really doing it, implementing it. So we have that management buy-in, we have that vision, we have maybe everyone of HR on one table, we have the use cases in mind. How do you really kick it off?
What do you mean, how to kick it off?
I mean, what do you need for that, right? I mean, I guess you need a technology partner, for example. You need, I don't know, a kind of roadmap, how to implement it. But you also need, maybe some kind of accompanying efforts, to get the culture there, the mentality, the leaders. So I mean, I assume it's not like a button you click on and then it's running.
Definitely.
No, I think it's a process, right? And I'm curious where it started, and what kind of elements you see in it.
So I mean, I think the first thing is like you mentioned is you need to get the buy-in in terms of what value you want to get out of the whole platform or the whole initiative. Then you need a partner, and that depends on which use cases you want to pursue. You need probably a technology vendor that helps you alongside that journey. What is equally important is that you have your local, ideally business, also embrace the value of such an initiative. Like, it's always more stronger if there's local managers and leaders that are telling the story of how such a platform can advance you in your career, or such a platform is important to stay relevant in this dynamic environment. It's always the most valuable if that message comes from within or from the organization and not just from HR. So that sort of stakeholder buy-in I think is very important as you roll out the platform in order to make it a success and making sure it gets embedded into the day-to-day practice. But another big point is our culture, because what this opportunity marketplace unlocks is basically careers across the organization without borders. But we know there are borders in the organization as to managers who would love to keep their talents with them. So we always talk about we need to make the shift from being a talent hoarder to a talent accelerator. But that has a big culture element. And especially in a big diversified organization like Deutsche Telekom, we have different countries, different kinds of organizations in our group. And to break down those barriers, to provide careers for employees across those borders, that's a longer transformation.
Yeah, I can assume. I mean, let's maybe stick for a moment with the leaders, because I mean, when I was talking to other organizations about their journey becoming a skill-driven organization, the leaders have been kind of the make or break point, because in the end, it's about them, appreciating this idea, recommending it to their employees, as you just said, but also it's a big mindset shift for them as well, right? That the person I hire, this talent I fought for, in the market, suddenly should be free to move wherever it wants, right? And that this is better than leaving, this talent leaving the organization to a competitor, for example, which makes sense, but it's hard, in the implementation. I mean, how did you work with your leaders? What did you do in the culture to really let this idea sink in?
Well, this is an ongoing activity, and it's also not done very quickly, right? I think within Deutsche Telekom, it's clear that our perceived career development opportunities amongst our employees is one of the metrics that is currently not very high. So we know that our employees don't perceive there to be enough opportunities to advance their career. That is a pain felt by the entire organization, and we're also jointly committed to improve that. So we have already that sort of that starting point that we all see the urgency, but then it's all about what messages do we reinforce in our culture initiatives. There's also we're going to revamp our culture pillars, where also these kinds of behaviors from leaders are more accentuated, that we expect them to be talent developers, that everybody invests in their own growth, but also in the growth of others. And by collecting enough messages and by leading by example, and over time you get sort of this transformation. But it's difficult to mention this one point that fixes it.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting because for me, this whole process of becoming a skill-driven organization, I think is also a renegotiation of responsibilities, for development, for learning, for career growth. And this holds true for the leaders. I guess this holds also true for employees themselves, right? How did you get them on board, in terms of understanding that it is, for them a big win to have a transparency about my skills, have, transparency about the opportunities, and then also to update these, because I think that's also still a challenge, right? That the technology is only as good as the data, as you said, clean data is the foundation.
Yeah, so we have a number of touch points that we build on in order to try to grab our employees, right? One of them is, of course, what I mentioned, the perceived career development is not so high. So one message is really like, hey, this is where Deutsche Telekom is investing in your career or in the opportunities that you have, go explore the platform. That's one line. The other pain that we know from employees is there are so many opportunities available within Deutsche Telekom, but sometimes you don't even know where to look. Even in the learning space, there's different learning platforms, there's different places where you have to go for different kinds of learning. So one message is that we try to bring it all together in this one-stop shop. That's also one motivator. But I think now we have the opportunity to touch base with an even more better motivator. In the face of AI, I think many people will be worried about what's becoming of my job, how does the company look like in 5 or 10 years, and how can I position myself towards that. And now the answer is this platform makes it transparent which skills are relevant for the future and how things are expected to develop. Because the skills are changing and we can make that transparent. And that is a big opportunity now. Like the use case is like for an employee, how can I stay relevant within the organization? And we tell them, go explore the opportunity marketplace.
Yeah, and then again, the question is, how do I get employees to that point? They ask themselves this question: how can I stay relevant, right, to the organization? But
they might not have that question exactly, but I think it starts with that, at least with the fear, like, oh God, the world is changing. I think many employees have that thought.
Yeah.
And at least we can provide them a little bit of guidance. Like we're trying to provide you orientation of where this shift is going towards. And you can map that together with the platform, you can map your development steps, right?
Yeah, I think that's super interesting that you say fear, because yesterday we had a conversation and I like the term where somebody said this motivation, for developing, learning and so on comes maybe in the end from a, facilitated anxiety. She put it that way, and I liked it in a way because, somewhere people need to take that kind of, hook or that sense of, I need to do something. I need to take ownership here. I need to get to this driver's seat. So, what I love to hear from you, I mean, since you're on the journey now with Deutsche Telekom, building the skill, based organization, introducing the opportunity marketplace for 4 years now, or how long?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
What have been moments, small or big ones, where you felt like we were on the right track? Because I can see many people listening are maybe already, on the same journey as you are, trying to implement the skill-driven organization, building the opportunity marketplace, but are not sure whether it's working or not. and what have been the moments for you and your team that you have been maybe celebrating? And it can be, small moments like we have, 1,000 registrations, or it can be bigger moments where a business leader said, hey, this really helped me out here.
Definitely. So one very interesting metric is that what we learned this year in 2025 are the percentage of of positions that we were able to staff with internal employees increased by 12%. So that is really improving our internal mobility. And that's one of our key goals.
Costs, right?
Yes.
That's bottom top line. I think that's always also important as HR to talk about. It has a business impact, which is really critical, right?
So that is a very important metric. I just recently, it was anecdotal evidence, but we just heard somebody that found a cross-country job through the opportunity marketplace.
Wow.
So relocating from Greece. So I think that is a pretty impressive story. And what's kept us really motivated along the journey is that wherever you pitch this idea of an opportunity marketplace, whether it's to HR leaders, whether it's to business, or whether it's to employees itself, it's usually met with a kind of excitement. Mm-hmm. So our level of pitching, you always get sort of this validation like, hey, it is relevant, right? It takes a longer time to really make sure that we realize all of our targets. But for instance, I was visiting in my hometown Dortmund, I was visiting the telecom shop there, which is recommended to do once a year to see how a day in the life is of a frontline worker. And I always love to ask the shop employees, like, what do you know of HR in general? Like, do you care? Is there something noticeable in your daily life that we touch? Then you usually talk about the performance management approach because that is quite structured and there's a certain expectation. So they talk about that. And then they started talking about, and I sort of like, how about career and opportunities? And they said like, yeah, I go to our internal job portal, that was still the old one. And then I see things and I don't even know what they mean. Like maybe I could do that job, but I'm not quite sure. And then that is such valuable feedback because what we are doing in our opportunity marketplace, the new one, is that we recommend jobs so that we can say, the system will already say, we think you have the right skills and experience. So that gives a little bit of confidence. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that we're integrating into our marketplace is an experience day where an employee can, or anybody can do a job shadowing day with somebody else for a day or half a day virtual. And that would be a perfect answer to that shop employee. I don't know if I can do that. Well, go do a job shadowing for a day with such a person, which you can find in the system, and see what it's like. And then you don't have to worry whether it can be something for you or it cannot be. But they can open up these barriers and provide these opportunities that people didn't have access to before. So it's these kind of conversations that every time you talk to somebody and they find a use case that you're providing with your platform, that's exciting, I think.
Yeah, and it gives you this feeling or the sense, hey, we are on track, we're moving in the right direction. I mean, I think many HR leaders I meet don't have a technology background, right? How much technology, savviness, I would say, is needed, right, to build an opportunity marketplace and to, get on this journey of becoming a skill-driven organization?
I think if you just want to get started on the way, right, you can just rely on your vendor's expertise to share the best practices. Yeah. But in the end, if you really want to embed skills in all parts of your organizational processes, it does involve a little bit of mental, also technical brain activity in order to map that all out. And I think that is still, I would recommend organizations to think about how they want to leverage skills in the future.
Yeah. And this, I think, brings us already in this, let's say, last part of our session, because I think you have been one of the front runners, or you are one of the front runners, I believe, in Germany when it comes to really implementing opportunity marketplace, which I guess maybe is also one of the hardest regions to do that, right? With all, workers' council and data privacy rules. What is maybe some big learnings that you take from those last 3 years? And, if you would do it again, would do it maybe differently?
So we spend a lot of time in the beginning, both with our privacy regulators as well as our workers' council, to explain the AI. So our opportunity marketplace is based on making personalized recommendations to our employees based on their skills and experience to provide them with the development opportunities that are there. So of course, when we talk about the intersection of AI and HR data, there's I think, valid concern. How is the AI working? Is it not biased? Is it not detrimental to the employee? So we spend a lot of time explaining, going through like, how do these models work? What kind of data is processed, and provide that acceptance. So I think that is important to do in this space anyway. So if you're leveraging the skills and experience of an employee, let's be transparent as to how we're using that data in order to bring them further. And yeah, it's about having that continuous dialogue. And I think the biggest tip is have the time. I think the slowest factor in all of our negotiations is, do we have sufficient time to go through all the topics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And next to that, I mean, what are maybe other kind of key takeaways in terms of, you mentioned the key challenge when it comes to culture, when it comes to leaders. What have been maybe here your biggest learnings? I mean, is that something you would have started earlier, or which needs an organization maybe to prepare? Is this something that you say comes along the way? I mean, have you some kind of key takeaways on these hurdles as well?
So I think we took a good approach because we started small, but we started outside of Germany with certain pilot units already in 23, 24. We had a great, and that's always the tricky part, because you have a great collaboration with the local units in order to get it going and to get the platform there. And at a certain point, you need to make a shift to, okay, now we're really going to have a platform that's there for all employees across Deutsche Telekom Group worldwide. And that requires this little shift in thinking, like then we need a higher level of standardization, right? So I think in a way we did a right approach by starting small, proving the value, right, making sure it works, but then also having certain local adaptations sneak into the platform in order to make sure it has that value. So in a way, I think it's good to do that quick pilot approach. But then you need to, at a certain point, you need to make a shift, like how do we provide a global equal opportunity marketplace for all employees? And that requires a more stricter platform.
Yeah. And that's something you're getting closer, right? I just learned from you before our podcast recording started that you are close to 120,000 employees at Deutsche Telekom registered at your opportunity marketplace in the upcoming weeks. Congratulations to that.
Yes, exciting times.
Give us a little insight on how does that continue. Right now it's the year 2025. You have 120,000 people on the platform, which is good. You see some first use cases, unleashing their impact. For example, the talent mobility part, right? And where is this going? I mean, what is the future scenario you have in mind? What is the film, that you see, happening in this whole topic over the next years? Where is it going?
I think there's two things that come to mind. One of them is, and we touched upon this earlier, is that you see many organizations are reducing the amount of jobs that they are hiring for, right? So one big question for us is, how do we keep the internal mobility high? And I think one opportunity is to work more in international teams on project work. Mm-hmm. So projects are usually still managed on quite a local level, but I think we have a fantastic talent pool across the group, and why can't we work together across certain countries on a certain project if the skills fit together? So I think we can increase our opportunities for employees by increasing our international collaboration, which is also part of our strategy as a big lever. The other thing that I think is important is we need to bring actually all HR processes, but also the skill-driven organization process into the flow of work. Mm-hmm. Currently, it's a platform that people have to navigate towards, but I think it's all about, we're going into the domain of people engaged with the organization via chats. Mm-hmm. Ideally, this should be one chat, and the whole skill information and opportunities should be somehow integrated so that people, find the opportunities way closer to where they are working in their platforms day to day.
Wow. And I mean, what do you think about these kind of future scenarios? I mean, maybe they're not that futuristic any longer. I mean, one big discussion is all about skill validation, right? How can we make it easier, to have the skills up to date? And I mean, just this morning, Josh Burson was talking about the tool they are using internally, and he was asking it, what are the skills of my team, right? And then based on all the kind of meeting logs, email communications, documents, and so on and so forth, the AI they use basically gave him an overview of the skills, of his team. No matter, I don't know how good this actually works, but I think the idea behind is that, and I think Microsoft, for example, is pushing that as well, because they have the infrastructure and the operating system with Microsoft, but to have really this very day-to-day actuality and this seamless kind of development of my skill profile. Is that something you see also coming? Or is that still a very kind of futuristic kind of science fiction idea?
I see it coming, but what I think is critical for European companies is not the AI giving insights to management based on the information that they have, but making that first transparent to the employee so they have some agency to influence or update that picture. Because I think it's exactly this fear of an AI starting to monitor your work, and maybe skills are, but it's a slippery slope from skills to whatever else was analyzed. Yeah, so I think a manager asking what are the skills of my team without making that whole process transparent to the employee itself, that is, I think, a first step that we need to. So I think skill inference can be a powerful tool. It can also make it easier for everybody to not maintain their skills, but actually have an objective way of identifying those skills. But you need to put employees in the driver's seat.
Cool. Coming to our last question. Good Morning L&D is all about, sending those wake-up calls into the L&D community to innovate, to go new ways. What is the wake-up call that you got from those last 3 years that you want to share with the L&D community?
Skills are maybe the new gold, right? And take the opportunity to think about how to embed them across all your use cases. And then it's a very exciting topic to work on.
Cool. Ilja, thank you so much.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.